The Holy Gospel is written in the 7th chapter of St. Mark, beginning at the 24th verse. Jesus set out and went away to the region of Tyre. He entered a house and did not want anyone to know he was there. Yet he could not escape notice, but a woman whose little daughter had an unclean spirit immediately heard about him, and she came and bowed down at his feet. Now this woman was a Gentile of a Syrophoenician origin. She begged him to cast the demon out of her daughter. He said to her, "Let the children be fed first, for it is not fair to take the children's food and throw it to the dogs." But she answered him, "Sir, even the dogs under the table eat from the children's crumbs." Then he said to her, "For saying that, you may go. The demon has left your daughter." So she went home, found the child lying on the bed, and the demon gone. Then he returned from the region of Tyre and went by the way of Sidon towards the Sea of Galilee in the region of Decapolis. They brought to him a deaf man who had an impediment in his speech, and they begged him to lay his hand on him. He took him aside in private, away from the crowd, and put his fingers into his ears, and he spat and touched his tongue. Then looking up to the heaven, he sighed and said to him, "Ephphatha," that is, be opened. And immediately his ears were opened, his tongue was released, and he spoke plainly. Then Jesus ordered them to tell no one, but the more he ordered them, the more zealously they proclaimed it. They were astounded beyond measure, saying, "He has done everything well. He even makes the deaf to hear and the mute to speak." Here ends the gospel for the day. Please be seated. The question for consideration today is simply this: do you believe in miracles? Do you really believe in miracles? Is that your final answer? I know every one of you at one time or another has heard a statement in which the first phrase was this: there are two kinds of people in this world. And from that they went on to say something like, well, as I saw in the movies not too long ago, the person said there are two kinds of people in the world, those that like Neil Diamond and those that don't. I heard recently that there were two types of people in this world, those that like lutefisk and those that don't. I heard somebody say not too long ago, there are two kinds of people in this world, those that like animals and those that don't. You all have heard it. You know how the regiment goes. It's usually said by someone who is passionate about something, about a performer, some kind of idol, some kind of philosophy, some kind of idea, and they want to make a statement. There are some kinds of people in this world, and I'm a part of that select group that likes this. And we divide ourselves from the people who differ from us, that don't agree with this, that don't like this, that don't like this idea or food or whatever it is. There's a couple of problems here. One is that there is not that clear a difference, and there is a third option. There might be some that really feel indifferent toward Neil Diamond. Some might like some of his songs, not other songs, might like some of the songs he's written. There might be some people who have no particularly affinity toward lutefisk or spaghetti or whatever it is, sauerkraut, but they'll eat it if it's there, if they have to. It's kind of inconsequential. The other problem is when people say this, it seems like they are dividing people on something that is truly, really insignificant in life. It really doesn't matter if you like some performer or not. That shouldn't cause any particularly division between you and someone else. And so usually when they start out with this kind of a phrase, it leads to something that is quite meaningless. However, I heard this statement used recently in reference to one of the greatest minds supposedly of all time, Albert Einstein. And he said this, and I think this absolutely does make a difference. What will distinguish you from somebody else? Albert Einstein said there are two kinds of people in this world. Those who act as if nothing is a miracle, and those who act as if everything is a miracle. That is a significant distinction. Now, I realize that there is an alternative to that too, that there is a third point of view. There are some people that might feel that things really aren't all miracles, not all life is a miracle, but there is something so significant and something so dynamic in their life that happens that they say that this cannot happen for any other reason that God became involved. If you want to see some illustration of this, I bring to you an illustration from a couple of men, Elitas and Egan Moreno. They were window washers in Manhattan. They were the kind of people that you see when you go into a city that go up on these tall planks and wash the windows of these all-glass buildings in those huge skyscrapers. On December 7th of 2007, the two brothers were washing windows on the 47th floor of a particular high-rise. The plank broke, and the two fell 47 floors to pavement. Edgar died immediately. Alamitas, by some strange circumstance, survived. No, he didn't fall, or he didn't catch himself on one of the other levels. He didn't fall into a canvas that protrudes out from the bottom floor. He wasn't saved by an airplane or any of those other things that you see in movies. He fell 47 floors to pavement, and for a solid month his life teetered on the edge like a thread. And on Christmas Day, Alamitas reached out to the face of a nurse and spoke words. 1 month later, he was told that he probably would walk again. Dr. Charles Larson looked at this event and he said, "You know, I never believed as a medical man in miracles, but there is no other way that I can see this, that God just simply stepped in, because the chances of him surviving would be nothing." Do you believe in miracles? Are you the kind of person that Albert Einstein could say everything you look at in life is a miracle in some way or another? Because it makes a difference in the way you live and the way you respond to life. Creation is a miracle. As you travel around and see the various kinds of world that we have, it's just amazing that it all fits together. And if you are one of those people that have been influenced by the scientific method that say we have the Big Bang Theory and two stars collided and all of a sudden creation was started, I have to say, well, that must have been one great event that God happened. Love is a miracle. I hear people say, I can't understand why people get divorced. Sometimes it's puzzling to wonder how people can get together and really love each other. They come from different backgrounds, different teaching, different economic stratas, different kinds of societies, different kind of economic conditions. And they get together and somehow commit themselves to each other. Or that congregations can get together and have different ideas and different opinions and get together and still survive as a congregation and witness to the warmth of God's love. The human being itself is a miracle. I heard one doctor that I was talking to when I introduced myself as to who I am. He said, we are very, very welcoming of chaplains here. He said, I, as a physician and a surgeon, every time I go in and operate on an individual, I am just overwhelmed by the design of this human body. He said, for me to think that it happened by chance is beyond all thought of mine completely. I know that there had to be a divine being in there and creating. And so it guides my hand as a surgeon, knowing that this is God's wonderful creation and I need to treat it so carefully and so lovingly. The gospel text this morning, and you're probably wondering when I was going to get there, is about two people who came and found a miracle. They had no reason to expect a miracle, but the fact was that they were open to the possibility of a miracle happening. The first was a Syrophoenician woman, a Gentile. They wanted to point out that because normally a Gentile would not come to a Jew for any kind of help whatsoever. But she came. Her daughter was ill. She heard about this man. She heard rumors about what he was doing, and she opened herself up to the possibility of a miracle. And did you get that when we read the gospel text? How Jesus responded to her? If he would respond to somebody like that, and our modern newspapers got a hold of it, they would call him a racist. What did he say to her when she asked for help for her daughter? He said, why should I take the good stuff and throw it to the dogs? I got to feed the children first. He was referring to the Jews. Basically said, you're a dog. Why should I help you? Testing. But today's society, he'd be in trouble. And she responds not in anger. She responds in total humility. And she said, yeah, but even the dogs eat from the crumbs that are spilled from the master's table. And she said, because you said that, you go home. The miracle has happened. That's a miracle in itself. That you are willing to accept something from me who you are supposed to hate. And then the man that was deaf and couldn't speak, and he probably couldn't speak because he couldn't hear. How can you have a language if you don't know the words? If you haven't heard speaking, it's hard to talk if you're deaf. He comes with no association with Jesus whatsoever. The people along the way have said, there's a person in town who seems to be a healer. Can we bring you? And he opens himself to the miracle, that something can happen. And see, that's always the beginning of a miracle, when you open yourself to the possibilities. And he comes to Jesus, and he's been healed. The text is about opening yourself to miracles. And it's important that you live the kind of a life that says everything has the possibility of a miracle. And you understand, as you watch things, you understand that it is all a miracle of God's creation. And all people are a part of God's creation. And all your actions have something to do with the miracle of God's love. It gives us a sense of wonder. I was at a motel, and it was not a 5-star hotel, I can tell you that, because I don't usually stay at 5-star hotels. As a matter of fact, I never do if I pay for it myself. But I was by the swimming pool. And there was obviously a couple that was used to 5-star hotels, and they were complaining about every possible thing in that hotel. The service, the way they were treated, the way the room was, and just everything about it. It was obviously that they were very wealthy people. They were talking about things that made this fairly obvious. Nothing was right. And beside the pool, there was a little boy in the pool, and the boy was slapping around with the water, and it was obvious that he was blind. And he said, Mom, this water is so wonderful. It's so wonderful. Oh, it must be so pretty to see. Discovering miracle in a water. I was really taken aback. One of the places I went when I first went overseas in Norway was to ask for water, a bottle of water. They said proudly, there's no place you have to worry about the water here. You just drink out of the spigot. We think our water's a miracle. To believe in miracles gives us a sense of gratitude. We seem to take everything for granted. And all of these things that happen to us on a daily basis, the way our body functions, the things that we have to work with, the people we have to deal with, we take them for granted. And they're all miracles. Whether it's medicine, transportation, or whatever it is, things are changing. Things are becoming better, giving a better quality of life. They are man's creations, but they are given by the bodies and minds that were given by their God. And finally, a sense of miracles gives us a faith. If you don't believe in miracles, how can you have a faith whatsoever? If you can't believe in the resurrection of Jesus Christ, which was a miracle, the greatest miracle of all time, the faith is pretty much dead. Paul says it like this: if we don't believe Jesus risen from the dead, your faith is vain and your hope is futile. I'm going to give one conversation that I had recently with one of our members, and he won't be upset with it. When I went to visit Larry recently, I think I had made 4 calls in hospitals that day. And he said, Pastor, this must be the roughest job of being a pastor. And I said, no, Larry, it really isn't. Because when you go to the hospital, you're dealing with someone who has the possibility of getting well, or somebody with the possibility that they are declining and will soon die. And I believe in the resurrection. I believe in the miracle of God's grace, and I believe in God's healing. And so whatever I find here, I believe that God is active in one way or another. No, the toughest part of the ministry is seeing members that really don't grasp the miracle of the church and see the importance of worship and see the importance of being so totally involved in this Christianity that God gave us, that they really don't believe in miracles. So the question today, and I think it's a valid distinction that Einstein made, There's some people that believe everything is a miracle, and some people that believe nothing is a miracle. I pray that for you, you will live as all of life is a miracle. Amen.